when I first started in that company, they had told me, you're going to build out your department. We have budget for you to bring in employees. Nothing. There was nothing. So
Right.
I was doing literally everything, and I
Right.
felt so overwhelmed and just so taken advantage of. And so when I saw the meeting pop up with HR and my manager, I was respectful and I was polite, but I did turn it into a bit of an exit interview. And I said, like, here's where I know this role did not align with what we discussed during the interviews. If you're going to bring
Right.
in another person, here's the support that they will need. Like, the way this is currently working, you're just going to burn out marketers over and over again. As far as I know, they haven't hired another marketer. So
That's really funny. Did you at least get like a little package on the way out?
I got a severance package.
See, so at least like you were gonna leave anyway. So like now it's like they gifted you a little something before you went out and did what you were gonna do anyway.
It was like a
Listen,
celebratory.
the universe. I love it.
Congrats
it's
on your
present.
business.
Yep. Welcome to the She's So Sweet podcast, where we interview accomplished women who have worked their way to the C-suite. I'm your host, Kristi Faltorusso, Chief Customer Officer and award-winning customer success executive. I am really excited to introduce today's guest. She is somebody I have been following avidly on LinkedIn, her journey, her story, her advice. So welcome to the show today, Brianna Doe, founder and CEO of Verbatim.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited. I feel like I pretend like I know you already and that like I know all about you just from your content. So I feel like I have like a little cheat code to you, but I am really excited to share your story today. So before we jump in, let's get right to it. Let's start by telling our listeners a little bit more about yourself. What is Verbatim? Tell us about your kind of role in the company and all that.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Verbatim. We are a boutique influencer marketing agency. So we work with, I'd say, like 50% B2B SaaS brands. The other 50% are B2C e-commerce. It's a lot of fun. I launched it about 2 years ago. Before that, worked in startups, really lean, really fast-paced startups, and just kind of worked my way up that way. Ended up in tech, which was a disaster, which I'm sure we'll get into, and ended up launching my own business. Outside of that, like you mentioned, I also create content on LinkedIn. I have for a couple of years. I wrote a book called The Unapologetic Professional, which comes out in November. And I have a couple newsletters.
I love that. Okay, so can you tell me, because the book is not live yet, what is the book about?
The book, in a nutshell, is about learning how to untangle your sense of self-worth from your job title, but at the same time, also build a career that actually feels rewarding and successful on your terms. I think, especially in the age of social media, it's so easy to see how other people would find success and think that that's what you have to do to be successful too. But if you build a career that doesn't feel authentically yours, you're just going to burn out. And so trying to find that balance between, honestly being able to pay your bills, but also feeling that you're, feeling rewarded in the work that you're doing. That's the basis for the book.
Oh, well, I'm super excited. I wish I had that 13 years ago. So better late than never, but we're super excited about that. When did you say it was going to drop? November
10th.
Exciting. How was that? How was it writing a book?
I'm laughing because it was a nightmare. It was so...
Listen, for what it's worth, I've never heard an author describe it as anything else. So...
Right?
What was...
It's pretty universal.
So let's dig into it. What was the hardest part about writing the book?
I think it's... When you create content on any platform, even LinkedIn, you can go back and edit yourself. You can remove things that you don't, relate to 6 months later. Like, it's so easy to edit yourself and to kind of let your thoughts evolve as you grow. A book just feels so static. Like, once it is published, those are my thoughts and it's out there, and I can't control, to an extent, like I don't get to sit there while everybody's reading it and hear what they think and have conversations about it. And so it just feels so personal to put it out there and so vulnerable. I'm so excited about it and I'm incredibly proud of the work that I did, but it was definitely a challenging experience in that regard, but also deeply rewarding.
It's so funny. I never even thought about that, but I also never thought about going back and editing anything I published online ever. Like, I've never gone back and deleted like an old Instagram post. I've never gone back and edited a LinkedIn post. I kind of just feel like whatever I put out there has a date on it, right? And so like, yeah, those were my thoughts 6 months ago. I don't know. I don't like cheese tomorrow. I like cheese today. It's like, it is what it is. So no, and I feel
agree.
like that's interesting.
And I don't, the thing is too, like, even as I say that, I don't go back and edit my posts from 6 months ago, but at least you can. Like, if you,
Okay. Yes.
you know what I
All right.
mean?
The
It just
option
feels
is
so
beautiful.
permanent.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. That's fair.
Yes.
That's fair. And guess what? Nobody's probably scrolling back to go read a post from 6 months ago. Although LinkedIn has been funny about resurfacing old content.
You would be surprised. I get notifications almost daily from people reading posts from a year ago. And I'm like, can you please not look at those?
Maybe your content was better than mine a year ago, but I definitely don't go back that far. I think the furthest I go back is like maybe a month or so. Someone will comment on something. I'm like, what are you doing back there?
Right.
Very good. Well, listen, I love that. I have to start each episode with rewinding the clock a bit. And because I think it helps set the tone for where our conversation is going to go today. And I always say, I hate to make assumptions, but I'm going to go out on a limb always on this question and say, I assume that when you were little, Brie, that you did not dream of being the CEO and founder of Verbatim, that this was not your life's goal when you were as young as you were. So I want you to think back as far back as you can remember. What did you actually want to be when you were younger?
Well, you're right. I never once woke up and was like, man, I would love to own a marketing agency someday. Like 6-year-old Brianna did not think about that. I was obsessed with becoming a photographer for the National Geographic. And I do mean obsessed. I researched it all the time.
You have to tell me though. Okay, because I could get photography. Like that could be clear to me. Why National Geographic specifically?
So growing up, you're unlocking a core memory right now, but growing up, my parents, you know how they used to sell like the magazines with the yellow covers?
Yes, the yellow one. Yeah,
Yes.
Very familiar.
I don't know why, but my parents had every edition ever.
Yes.
Like, they were all over the house.
Because you would get a subscription to these things.
Back in the
like
day.
Like that in Reader's Digest.
Yes, Reader's Digest. And so I would always just sit there and like be poking through them. I loved photography. I love animals. I love nature. And it was just my dream. So my parents bought me a camera when I think I was 10 or 11. And I became the family photographer.
I love that. Now, did you live in a place that there was a lot of nature and a lot of animals around that you could very easily go and photograph these things? Like, where'd you grow up and was that accessible?
Yeah. Yeah. At this point, I was born in Georgia, but I spent the majority of my childhood in Indiana. So cornfields, forests, deer. And my friends and I would spend the summers just, riding our bikes and hanging out in the woods. And so it was definitely like the perfect place to grow up.
I love that. Do you or your parents still have any of the photos that you took when you were younger?
You know what? My mom keeps everything I've ever done, so she probably does. I should ask
Moms
her.
do that. I'm going to challenge you at some point to go back and ask mom if she's got any of your photos from when you were younger of any of the nature pictures you took.
I will ask.
Okay. So I love that. Now, obviously, there was an evolution because we didn't just jump from photographer to founder and CEO. So now you got to walk me through, how did we get from A to Z?
Yeah. So also growing up, my family was huge on movies. And when I mean huge on movies, I mean we were always watching them. And so I really fell in love with storytelling as a whole. At the same time, I was constantly writing. I would fill notebook after notebook with stories. My mom just like kept giving me more notebooks, which was beautiful. And so by the time I got to college, I started college undecided, took a film class and realized that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to study film and be a screenwriter.
Wow.
Yeah, so I got my degree in film and media studies with an emphasis in screenwriting. But about a year and a half in, my freshman roommate dropped out to start a nonprofit. And then like 4 more of my friends dropped out to start nonprofits. Statistically, it felt improbable, but so many of my friends dropped out to do it. And I think by junior year, I was the only one from my original friend group that was still in college.
But yeah. Okay.
I know.
Okay.
It was very improbable. And so the thing with that is, you're idealistic. You have all of these dreams for your nonprofit. You don't know what you're going to do for marketing. You have a mission, but you don't have any strategy beyond that. And so I was still doing photography at this point. So for some of them, especially for my old roommate, I would create all their content, like do all the photography and everything. I saw that need for marketing, said, okay, well, I'll pick up the slack and teach myself some things. So I taught myself like the basics of paid advertising, graphic design, like content marketing and social media management. Completely fell in love with it. And by the time I graduated, I decided to pursue that full time. So by my by the end of my junior year, I was working like freelancing for different local businesses to try and just learn more about marketing. I
Right.
felt really insecure about the fact that I was studying film, which, if you
Fair.
ask my parents, isn't like the most stable of degrees. And then couple that with wanting to go into marketing where people are actually getting a degree in that or in business.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that when I graduated, I had, a foundation to stand on.
That's great. So what was your first job then out of school?
Well, my first job out of school was actually, I was wrapping up an internship for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then they had me come on full time when the team photographer left. And so I was thinking, okay, if I end up I went for the team photographer role. I said, if I get that, I guess I'm going to be a photographer. It didn't. I made it to the final two. And so then I went on to work for Chick-fil-A, managing some of their restaurant marketing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, were you a Diamondbacks fan? Like, how did you, what was the association with that team specifically? Or was just this an opportunity that presented itself and you were like, okay, I'm going to go explore it? And
it was that.
photographing baseball is very different than photographing some other things, no?
It's a lot different, but honestly, by this point, I've been shooting for like 10 years. And
Wow.
in high school, they had like a photography elective you could take. And that's when I started to really broaden my horizons. And so to your point, it did just feel like a cool opportunity to go for. I had no sports photography experience. I do not know why they hired me, but it was amazing. I love sports photography to this day. I got to be honest, I'm not a Diamondbacks fan. And I think anybody listening from Arizona will probably get this. We do not have the best sports teams. They're pretty bad. And most people in Arizona are transplants. So
Fair.
my parents are from New York. I grew up thinking the Yankees were everything.
I grew up in New York and I was a
okay.
Mets fan. And so I kind of feel the story with the Diamondbacks. Like, I don't know, like Mets aren't really anything to write home about these days. Although last year they had a bit of a rally, so it is what it is.
Okay,
They made
we're
a bit
getting
of
there.
a comeback. Yeah, Okay, so now you end up working for Chick-fil-A. Give me this journey now, because then where did you go? Because at some point I'm trying to figure out, when did we get out of photography and like when did we shift to tech? So like I'm here for this ride.
Yeah.
So take me from Chick-fil-A. Tell me about that.
So
what happened?
When I didn't land the sports photographer role or the team photographer role, I essentially put the camera down, but it did prove to be a very useful skill when I was going for other marketing jobs. So I was still doing photography from like a content creation perspective.
Yep.
And, for like sales materials and things like that. But I went to work for Chick-fil-A. And then at the same time, I was still freelancing. I still felt like deeply insecure about this lack of a marketing degree. And so my main objective was to learn as much as I could about, one, like different industries with marketing, and two, to figure out what I wanted to specialize in. I kept being told, like, you have to niche down, you have to specialize. So I deliberately picked roles that let me explore multiple things at once. Like, they're looking for a graphic designer and social media manager who also can do paid ads. Great. I guess that's me now. Or a brand manager who can also shoot, our products for us. The combinations like that. And that was my career, I would say, for the next 6 to 7 years. So taking me to like my mid to late 20s. I started out in, like hospitality, Chick-fil-A, and a lot of D2C e-commerce, health and wellness, sustainability. And then half a decade later, I also made the transition into tech. So while I was still freelancing on the side in e-com and B2C, I started working for like a fintech startup, a Web3 startup. And at this point, I knocked off or checked off a lot of the boxes on what I didn't want to do. And so I was able to start focusing more on like growth marketing, influencer marketing, things like that. So
what did you think about making that shift from kind of that freelancing world to then go working in, I assume this is B2B, right?
Yeah.
A B2B tech environment. What were your thoughts and how was that transition? Because I did something similar myself. I was in marketing for 10 years before I moved into tech, and it was a different world for me. So I'm interested to hear your perspective.
Yeah, it was a different world. What drew me to it was the money. If I can be blunt, like all I kept hearing was how great the money was. Like,
right.
Salaries are great in tech. And I had spent so much of my early 20s working multiple jobs, one, to learn, but also because if I had just had one job, it was not going to pay me enough.
It wasn't paying the bills.
Like
Yeah.
it wasn't paying the bills. And so that level of financial freedom was really, really appealing to me. And also it was exciting. I'm always chasing like a new challenge, a new way to learn or grow. And, for the teams that I ended up working for, one of the things that really attracted them to me was that I brought this different kind of experience. I came from like a B2C world. And so it was interesting. They were still startups. So like there were obviously a lot of similarities between the past companies I'd worked for, but it did feel like a different world. And I can't say it was my favorite. Like I definitely prefer, I think there's, especially in influencer marketing, like in this niche,
Right.
there's so much more creative freedom. That's one thing that I work with my clients on now, my B2B clients, is within our budgets, like within what is permitted by leadership team, like exploring more, branching out, working with, creative partners in different ways. But yeah, I think I'll never quite fully leave like e-commerce and D2C.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Now, listen, I need you to describe to me what it means to be an influence marketer, or influencer marketer, because I feel like it's like the past 10 years has been like the rise of the influencer and like this like creator world that we now live in. What does that work entail? So like in your job, because I know what standard marketing looks like and I know what like digital marketing and event marketing and like all these other things. What specifically is the work that you're doing?
Yeah, and that's a good question because for context, like 10 years ago when I started working in influence marketing, or almost 13 years ago, it was mostly just like you pay a blogger to put an ad in their
Blogs
blog.
were a thing.
Blogs were a thing. Blogs were a huge thing. It looks so different now.
Like LiveJournal, was that 13 years ago? Was that more? Was that like 16 to 20 years ago?
I remember that. I
I
think that was like 16-ish.
Maybe more.
It feels like forever
I don't
ago.
know. We old. Okay.
I don't want to talk about it.
Not today, not on this show.
Right. So my day-to-day, typically we're building out like full influencer marketing programs for our clients. So what that means is maybe they've tried influencer marketing before, but not to any great extent, or they're coming in like flying blind, basically. So first step is helping them build out what the strategy looks like. Okay, let's say your audience lives on these channels, YouTube and LinkedIn. Like, how do we want to actually engage with them? Who do they trust? Who's creating content that falls within your niche or adjacent? Do we want to start with sponsored posts, or do we want to also loop in like co-created lead magnets, co-branded webinars, things like that? So understanding who their audience is, what their goals are, if they're trying to drive, let's say, leads or demo bookings or just brand awareness and impressions, and then building a strategy that allows them to do that within their budget. And then we handle influencer sourcing. So finding the right influencers, negotiating with them for typically like bundled partnerships.
Yep.
It's never just one sponsored post or one event. And then we manage like the creative strategy and the content calendar itself. So making sure content's getting out, making sure it's approved by the brand, reporting back on results, and then basically refining the program and either scaling it or refining what's currently in place.
I love that. It's like, I feel like there's, with the evolution of tech and everything else, right? Like there's always going to be new roles, new jobs, new things that pop up. And so it's been really cool to kind of watch this because, like I said, as a former marketer, I knew what was available to me in terms of jobs and opportunities back then. But like, I could never just step into marketing today, 14 years later, and even have a clue of where to start because it's evolved so much.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's cool to see so many different roles pop up. And I do love the focus like on the creator economy. I think I think in a world that's just increasingly saturated with AI, it's one way that we could stay really human as brands and as consumers. And so I love it.
Okay, no, we're definitely not going to make this an AI-focused conversation, but I got to ask, how is that disrupting the work that you're doing?
I guess it's got to be
hard, no? Because if you're finding influencers, and now I feel like people are leaning so heavily into taking it, I wouldn't say take advantage of, but they're definitely leveraging AI.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys still find authentic voices, and how do you still make sure that content isn't diluted by what's, this over creation of AI content?
Well, the main thing that it comes back to is, honestly, even if you're using AI to help you create content, is your audience still engaging? Is there still a thoughtful conversation and dialogue in your comments? Or do they show up to events that you're promoting or speaking at or whatever the case may be? Like, I don't think there are many ways to like prevent a creator from using AI, But
Right.
if you're using it in a way that's authentic and you're not relying on it to be your voice and your audience still shows up for you, it's not an automatic no. But what I'm more concerned about are like the, creators that use pods, like the engagement pods where you pay people to come and flood your comments. Like that's what I mean by thoughtful engagement.
Right.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I definitely see a lot of that. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we're not going to make this conversation about that. This is about you. So you got to talk to me now. We're going to talk about your pivotal moments and decisions because I know that anytime you reflect back on your career, there's definitely some standout moments where you're like, that define your journey and really send you down a different path. So I want you to reflect for a moment and you think about your career journey. What were some of those pivotal moments or those big decisions that you feel like really contributed to kind of your ascent?
I would say first one was choosing or deciding to start creating content on LinkedIn that changed the trajectory of my career in a way that I never could have imagined or anticipated. And hiring a career coach when I was about 3 or 4 years into working in tech. That's what directly led to me launching Verbatim and leaving corporate America, for lack of a better term. So I think when I look back, those two are pivotal. Then obviously back in college, choosing to help my friends, my entire friend group with their nonprofits. But yeah, I would say those two for sure.
Okay, so then let's take a moment here because I get people like you. I produce a lot of content that goes on LinkedIn specifically. I also have other channels that I do a lot of content creation on. What was it that kind of pushed you to start creating content on LinkedIn? Because I know
Mm.
everyone has their own reasons and I love when people can clearly articulate their why. What was it that drove you to say my experiences, my thoughts are valuable and I should be sharing this out with our community?
The thing is, I didn't feel that way, and that's actually what drove me to stop. I didn't. It was actually a question in my head. Like I was starting to spend more time on LinkedIn, and I was seeing
Uh-huh.
people sharing their stories, and I'd
Uh-huh.
spent so long creating content, like for brands, for CEOs,
Yeah.
whatever. And so I was like, "Well, wait. What about me? Like, do I actually have something that I want to say?" And so it was kind of a test. I thought I would have 2 followers, and one would be my mom. So it's definitely not played out the way I anticipated, but I kind of wanted to prove myself wrong in a way.
Interesting. And so how
Yeah.
have you found that? So I started it's interesting. I looked back at it because you can see the day you created your LinkedIn profile. So I was on
Yeah.
LinkedIn 20 years this May, which is a
Oh, wow.
wild number for me to hit that milestone. But I didn't start creating until probably like 2016 probably was when I really started like producing content on LinkedIn. What was like your early observations and what was that experience for you as you grew your following?
It's so funny you say that too, because I created my account back in college, when your professor tells you, yeah, get a LinkedIn. And I didn't start creating until 2022. I was so sure that I was just going to talk about marketing, like what I'm learning, what I do in my day to day. I think I did like 2 or 3 posts about marketing and I was so bored. I do it all day at work. I don't want to talk about it on LinkedIn. It was mind-numbingly boring, and so it just didn't resonate with me. I just wasn't enjoying it,
Okay.
and so this is what led to, like, me finding my actual why once I decided, "Okay, I do want to find a way to articulate my experiences. I do think there's value in this." It was dissecting my career for people that were 3, 5, 7 years behind me or earlier in the game, like, understanding what had gone well, what hadn't, what I'd done wrong, what I'd done right, like, what I'd learned from it. I think especially being, like, first generation American, I didn't know what a mentor was. I definitely didn't have one. I was winging it 99.9% of the time, 100% of the time, if we're being honest. And it led to a very colorful career, but also one where there were mistakes that I could have avoided. There were ways that I could have advocated for myself. And so that's been my journey over the past couple of years is kind of stepping into that like teacher role, for lack of a better term, and being comfortable with sharing what I've done wrong. But it's been great. It's been very rewarding.
What's your gut reaction when someone refers to you as an influencer?
Disgusting.
Right?
I, d-
I
I
immediately
do
think
not
Kim
like it.
K, and I was like, I am just a girl on the internet telling you about all the ways
Yeah,
I failed in hopes that you listen to one thing I say so you don't make the same mistakes. Um,
exactly. And
but
it's
I
funny
have
because
to
I
ask, I
say
think
I
it's
call
funny.
them. Yeah, I
Right.
call them influencers all day, but no, I prefer like just content creator. I'm fine with
I
that.
think it's very funny. It's good. I'm glad we got your opinion on that. Okay. So then the other thing you said was a real pivotal moment for you was actually getting a career coach. So what drove to
Yeah.
that? Because I feel like there's a lot of folks out there who haven't explored professional mentorship or getting a career coach, but every successful person I speak to definitely alludes to the fact that they've had one or both of those roles in their professional career that have really helped them along the way.
It all started because I was working in tech, like I said, and this job that I was enjoying, it was also so much work. I was extremely burnt out and overwhelmed. And then they laid off half the company. And overnight, my workload literally quadrupled.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I remember like after our, all hands, I shut my laptop and just started crying, went to my husband and a boyfriend at the time and said, like, I just can't do this. I can't work here anymore. It's like, okay, we'll find a new job. So I found a new job for a fintech startup. And it's like there was this cycle that I was in that I'd start to notice with jobs. I would be happy for the first, 60 days, 90 days maybe. And then the cracks would start to show. I would start to burn out. The workload would be unmanageable. And it happened with this role too. I was deeply unhappy, deeply, deeply unhappy. And I was just sick of it. Like I didn't know what my blind spots, I guess, were professionally. And I knew somebody on LinkedIn. I've been following her forever. We chatted a bunch. And I just had a lot of respect for her as a career coach and as executive coach. And so I ended up hiring her. We had one call. And at the end of the call, she goes, okay, well, based on all your answers to the questions, it doesn't seem like you want to work for somebody else. Like, I'm happy to, we can do all the things that you hired me for, like help you learn how to manage up more effectively and communicate effectively, whatever the case may be, or we can start mapping out your corporate exit. And I said, let's go with that.
Okay, so as somebody who's still stuck here in corporate, what sad face emoji. Tell me, what does that practically look like? We're gonna map your corporate exit. Like, tell me about that because I'm assuming that that's a bit of a journey as well.
It was, especially because if we look back over the moment I graduated from college to that moment, I'd explored so many different avenues of marketing. So there were a lot of different ways I could interpret that. Like, okay, is it influencer marketing? Do I want to do graphic design? Like, what do I want to do with this? Do I want to do something with personal branding? Because I've grown on LinkedIn. So first thing was figuring out what I actually enjoyed that could also make me money, but that I could build a business around. Marketing agency. And deep down, early in my career, I'd worked for an agency and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. And so I thought that was, I was excited about that idea. I wasn't excited about, writing, like ghostwriting for CEOs and things like that. So that was the first step. And then for me, the next step was challenging a very deep-rooted fears around financial stability, especially coming from a background in my 20s where I had no money. Like, I did not want to go back to that. It was so stressful. Every day I just thought about bills. And so I was really, really scared of going out on my own, especially after working in tech and being in that position. So it was a two-parter. Transparently, I had to deal with it in therapy and talk through it. But then with my career coach, we also very tactically broke down, okay, this is what I need to make each month to survive. Here's what I need to be comfortable and happy. Here are the different revenue streams that I currently have or can stand up over the next couple months. And start, funneling that in. And that's how I'll get to this, magical number per month while I'm building up the business. And then from there, it was a business strategy conversation. Okay, you want to build a marketing agency. What does that look like? Like, what services would you like? How are your offerings going to be set up? And so she was great. Shout out to April Little. She was amazing in helping me break it down step by step. And then I was ready. 2 weeks before I was going to put in my notice, I got laid off.
So, I mean,
crazy, right?
Well, this is the universe working, okay. So what did you say?
Oh, I was thrilled. I hated that job. It was so much work. Well, when I first started in that company, they had told me, you're going to build out your department. We have budget for you to bring in employees. Nothing. There was nothing. So I was running demand gen. I was helping sales. I was doing content. I was doing social. I was doing paid ads. I was literally everything. And I felt so overwhelmed and just so taken advantage of. And so when I saw the meeting pop up with HR and my manager, I was respectful and I was polite, but I did turn it into a bit of an exit interview. And I said, like, here's where I know this role did not align with what we discussed during the interviews. If you're going to bring in another person, here's the support that they will need. Like, the way this is currently working, you're just going to burn out marketers over and over again. As far as I know, they haven't hired another marketer. So
that's really funny. Did you at least get like a little package on the way out?
I got a severance package.
See, so at least like you were gonna leave anyway. So like now it's like they gifted you a little something before you went out and did what you were gonna do anyway.
It was like a celebratory.
The universe. I love it.
Congrats
it's
on your
present.
business.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Well, I always talk to people because I'm like, listen, I know there's pivotal moments and things that happen to us, but like there's also a lot of challenges that we have to navigate as we go through our careers. So when you think about that, what were some of those really significant challenges or obstacles that you were faced with, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I would say one challenge, which I alluded to earlier, was that cycle of burnout. I went through that just over and over again it was cyclical for about 8 years. And I think it really did hold me back from like exploring different opportunities because I was so focused on just surviving the work that I was doing. And I just wish, like looking back, I just wish I had reached out for like a mentor or found a community or just something. Because I think especially like being a woman in corporate America, you don't always get to work with other women. And so it can feel very much like an island and you don't know who to talk to. So that's one thing that was just an ongoing challenge for me. And I would say a big one too, like when I launched my agency, I did it with a co-founder. I don't have one anymore. So that was I'm so glad I did it because otherwise I'd be wondering what if, but it was an extremely challenging situation. And it was one where I started to question if I was on the right track, if I was doing what I should be doing or like what I was called to do, for lack of a better term. But I'm really grateful for that experience. I learned a lot about myself as a leader, as a partner, and now as a solo founder.
Okay, so let's rewind on that one for a second. What made you want to take a co-founder when you were starting your business? Was that advice that your career coach had offered you? Is that something you just had a bestie and you were like, let's do this together because it's better together? Or was this like, I needed financial backing? Like, what kind of drove some of the decision making to bring somebody on? Especially considering, again, I wasn't in this conversation with you and your career coach, but if you didn't want to work for somebody, having a partner is a lot of that though too, right? You're answering to somebody, even if you guys are peers and equals. So given what you shared earlier in this episode, what drove you to bring on a friend? We'll just call them a friend.
I'll be candid. Yeah, I'll be candid. So my career coach, she wasn't thrilled, for context.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, she supported what I wanted to do. But when somebody's just giving you that look like, okay.
Like, is that really what you want to do? Okay,
like,
yep.
Mm-hmm, okay, we love that. We love that for you.
Yeah.
I'll be candid. It was fear. I was really scared of doing this on my own and failing.
Oh, wow.
It felt like I could reduce the risk if I had somebody in it with me. And that literally was the only reason. We were friends, yes, but I was definitely driven by fear. I didn't share that with anybody at the time, but.
How long did the partnership last where you guys were doing this together? Was this short-lived? Was this like a week ago you decided to like break up?
Oh, no. We signed the like termination paperwork on the 6-month anniversary of us starting the business.
Okay. All right. So you kind of knew early on that this wasn't going to be a long-term thing.
Yeah, I would say by month 3, me and these 90-day cycles. Like by month 3.
Listen, good for you. If it only takes you 90 days, this spot would take some people 12 months or longer. I mean, good for you. At least you can pivot quickly.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's when the cracks started to show. We decided to end the partnership and I wanted to keep Verbatim. So I just continued building.
All right. So we've spent enough time talking about pivots and challenges and things you had to overcome. But one of the things that I feel like as women, we do not do enough of is celebrate our successes, right? Because we are so goal-oriented and so driven that we are always focusing on the next thing in front of us that we don't stop to look in the rearview mirror. So I'm going to force you to do that for a minute. And I want you to look back at your career and I want you to think about the proudest moments or the best accomplishments you had in your career so far. And we're going to take a moment to talk about them. So look back. What are the things that you're like, damn, I did that? Or I like, even if it was something that was like horrible, but you survived it. I mean, I want to hear your proudest moments.
It is so funny you say that. I'm notoriously bad at this.
I
The
know
minute you
you
ask
are
it, I'm
not
like,
alone.
I
I'm
have no
telling you, the
clue.
more successful women are in their careers, the less likely they are to celebrate their successes. There's a reason why I make it part of the conversation.
No, and I love that you do because my mind is blank. I would say, okay, we'll start recently and then move backwards. So Verbatim was ranked the #1 influencer agency in Phoenix, and there are a lot here. So that was really
Wow,
exciting. Yeah,
that's amazing.
thank you. It's very exciting.
That
Um,
is.
I would say landing the book deal in 2024 was huge. Like I said, I always loved to write. I never thought I would write a book. Like I always wanted to, but I never thought I'd write a book.
Really? Even
And
though you filled all those notebooks that your mom gave you, at no point in time in your life did you like really think you would write a book?
I didn't think anybody would want to publish it. I think I would write the book, but there
You
wouldn't
know,
be.
self-publishing has been around a long time, girl. Like there's
It's
nothing
true.
stopping anybody who's
It's
got
true.
something to say.
That's true. That's very true. So yeah, I just one of those things where I was like, okay, well, I'll probably do
Yeah.
that when I'm, just a lot older and more experienced
Okay.
and all those things. So I'm very, very proud of that. I'm proud of the book coming out. I'm also really proud of myself for that period in my 20s where I was working like 3 or 4 jobs at a time. Like I said, I wish that I would have given myself the opportunity to get more support in that. But I was also very focused on learning and very driven. And looking back, I do not have that energy now to work like 4 jobs. But it did feel like this period in my life where I told myself I just need to hustle and grind for the next however long. And I feel like it catapulted or accelerated my career in a way that it wouldn't have otherwise.
I love that. Now,
Yeah.
when you think back over all these years, was there any one person that you think of when you think of your successes? Is there anybody who really helped you, supported you, encouraged you, pushed you, gave you hard feedback? Was there somebody you think about that you're like, damn, this part of my story wouldn't exist if it wasn't for them?
Yeah, 2 people. One, I would say my mom. She has always been like, yeah, she's just the best person I've ever known. And she's supported me through so many like career pivots and moments where I wasn't sure about what I was doing or I felt insecure. Even now, like as I'm doing more speaking engagements, I'll just call her and say, like, I don't know, mom, am I gonna do a good job? And she just, I don't know, she's my biggest cheerleader. Um, and then my manager, shout out to Jeff Bassett. We worked together at Footprint, and he was the first manager I ever had who felt like a mentor. Like I'd never felt so supported by a manager or a leader before. Um, Leaving that role was one of the hardest things just because of him. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah.
Well, I mean, your mom, honestly, from what you've already shared, probably would have been an obvious guess if I had to pick one because she got you your
Mm.
camera, she bought you all these notebooks. Like she's clearly she supported the career pivot after college. Like I don't know, she's woven in through your entire story from when you told me what you wanted to be as a kid to now. So that I
Literally,
feel
she's the
like
reason I met my
I
husband. Like
really
yeah, I almost canceled our date.
stop. Okay, so what did mom say? What was the mom advice that encouraged you to go on the date with the man who became your
So
husband?
for context, we met on Bumble
Okay.
and he had very nice pictures. And then there's just one photo of him. It's like seared in my brain. He's wearing like a bolo tie and a top hat. And I'm like looking at this picture a couple hours before the date. And I'm just like, I don't think I have it in me to do this. So I call her and I'm like, is it rude to cancel? And she goes, I raised you better than that. Like, you need to go on this
Oh.
date. He looks like a nice boy. I went, I fell in love with him that night, and we've been together ever since.
Oh my gosh, does he know that that photo was almost like that was the thing that was gonna push you over the edge?
Yeah. And he still kept the top hat.
Oh my gosh, that was even my
Yeah.
next question. Did he ever wear those things in front of you? Okay, he did. All right.
No.
Well, no.
He tried, and I said no.
You're like, that's not happening. That's
Not
not
happening.
happening. All right. I love that. Well, listen, something else that I see you do, again, these are my observations that I make, but I talk about this all the time. I love the saying empowered women empower women. I do see that come out through your content and your engagement with the people that follow you in the community. So when you think about that, what does it mean to you and how do you show up as a woman who is empowering other women?
Well, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it because it is something that's incredibly important to me. I think there are the, obvious or traditional ways, like mentoring women. I mentor through my alma mater, and I try to focus primarily on like, women that are graduating or seniors or juniors. But then I think there are also other ways that I try to do it, like advocating for women, even when they're not in the room. So, for example, like if there's a speaking gig coming up that I'm doing, I know they're looking for more speakers. I will always look to the women in my, Rolodex first and see where I can kind of amplify them or get them in the door.
Yeah.
And then also just trying as much as I can to be transparent about, like I said, like what I've learned, what's gone well, what hasn't, how I've learned to advocate for myself, how much I made in this role, like how I asked for a raise. I think the more we can like remove the gatekeepy vibe of corporate America
Yeah.
and kind of pull back that curtain, because that's what I wanted or what I needed when I was younger was just like more information. Like
Yeah.
yes, I'll advocate for myself. Sure. What does that look like? Like, how do I do that? How do I figure out if a job is the right fit for me? Like, what questions do I ask? So trying to balance like advocating on behalf of the women I know and also sharing information with the ones I do and the ones I don't know as well, like just making it more accessible.
I love that you go back as far as these women that are graduating and entering the
Yeah.
workforce, because I feel like that's such a beautiful way to like start their journey on a positive foot. Because imagine had we had resources like you, like I, that early in our careers, right? Or even just to help us think about what does a career look like? You're probably offering them so much more clarity than they could probably get. I know classrooms are wonderful. I very much support higher education. But there's so much that you don't learn, and there's so many things that you end up having to navigate that nobody prepares you for. So I think it's so beautiful that you're giving back in that way.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I agree. Like it's for one thing, I think I huge fan of higher education. I miss college. I want to go back to school. I also think it's a little absurd that we're expected to know what we want to do at 18 and then stick with that for the next 40
Ye-
years. And so I think also making
Yeah.
sure that that's clear. Like you can change your career or life as much as you want.
Yeah. Yes. And at
Yeah.
any time. And it's never too late.
Yes.
I feel like that's
Yes.
something also, especially women and as they get on in their careers, there's this stigma that like, oh, okay, well, I can't make a change now. I've been doing something for 20 years. I've been doing something for 30 years. Like I can't change at 40. I can't change at 50. You can change any day you want. If this is no longer
Yeah.
what serves you, go find something else. Go find a passion. Go find something else. So I love that you're also setting that expectation with folks. I have a daughter right now who is going into her senior year of high school. And man, we are in the thick of just that. And it's like, yeah, she knows directionally what interests her and what her passions are. But for her to align on like a very specific career path right now, that's terrifying. I
It's
changed my
so
majors 3
scary.
times in college and I still didn't do what I graduated with. So I
It's so
you can't
scary.
know.
I
Oh
think
my
about that all
gosh,
the
it's
time because
terrifying.
I was 16 when I graduated, and looking back, I'm like, it's ridiculous. Like you have to be told that it's okay to change your mind even after you graduate, even after you're 5, 10, 20 years into a role.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, hopefully somebody listening to this will hear that advice and make the change that they've been thinking about making. Okay, so one more thing I got to dig into for a second here is because I get this question asked all the time of me, and I'm sure people ask you, which is this kind of idea of like, how do you do it all, right? And so we know that there is so much that goes into balancing a personal life and a professional life and just yourself, right? Like I know that for me, it's like health and fitness and wellness for me is as important as raising a daughter and being a good spouse and being a good executive, right? And showing up in all these ways and places in my life. How do you do that? How do you find a way to create whatever balance looks like in your world? Because I don't believe in 50-50. What does balance
Yeah.
look like for you? And then how do you create that so that you feel fulfilled?
Well, I love that you mentioned that about the work-life balance because that's a big part of it. I spent so long, not sure if you can relate with this, but I spent so long thinking like work-life balance is the goal. It's the gold standard, like 50% here, 50% there. If I don't have perfect balance, I am an absolute failure and I should just quit
Right.
everything. It's exhausting. And so learning what's worked for me is like constantly reminding myself that it can be and it should be for me more fluid. Like some
Yep.
days work will require or ask more of me. Some days my personal life will. And I think a big part of it for me as well is just being unapologetic about the areas of my life that do need a bit more, TLC than others sometimes. And also being cutthroat in removing like the projects or work that I don't have time for that aren't a priority that I said yes to out of guilt or obligation.
Which
If you
we
know,
do.
you know. Which we do. Because what I've learned is that if you say yes to everything, you have to say no to the things that actually matter to you. And what matters to me is, to your point, taking care of my health, mental and physical, spending time with my husband, like spending time with my family, building a career that allows me to do that is important. And I also want to work on projects that make me feel really fulfilled and just alive inside. And so if whatever I'm working on isn't leading me towards one of those goals or objectives, it's not a good fit, and it's okay to set it down.
I love that. But you know what it is? You have clarity around what that looks like for you. And I feel like that's what a lot of folks struggle with, is understanding like what they can and can't say no to. Where do they want to create those boundaries? What are their priorities? And I think it's so easy, especially early in your career, to just get lost in all of that and not have clarity to make the right decisions. So if I was offering some advice to folks, I would definitely say, like, spend some time thinking about what are the things that are most important to you, because there's a reason and a season, right? Early in my 20s, I had no problem working 16, 17, 18-hour days because I didn't have to clean a home, care for a kid, walk the dog. I didn't, I different priorities at different times. And I think that that's okay for people to realize too, is that there's a reason and a season that might make something or some stage of your life look very different than another stage.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Everything ebbs and flows, for sure.
It does. It does. Okay. So listen, before we wrap up today, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away with them?
I want them to take away that not only is it okay to change your mind or to pivot or to explore new opportunities that maybe you hadn't considered before, but it's actually the best way to build a career that's meaningful to you and rewarding to you. If I didn't let myself like grow or shift or try different things, I would probably be in a career or a role right now that I find deeply unfulfilling and not meaningful. I don't know if I'd have my business. I don't know if I would have written a book. It's just interesting to think about like how your life and career could take on a shape of its own once you give it that space to do so. And so I think that's what I want people to walk away from this with, is be okay with things not looking the way you thought they would, and also be unapologetic in the way that you approach that and the way that you go after it. Like, be okay with your life and career changing.
I love that. What a beautiful way to kind of wrap up this episode and your story and your journey. And I know this is just the beginning for you, and we're super excited for your book launch, which we will make sure that once this episode drops, that all of that information and your book will all be accompanied with that. But Bri, just thank you so much for sharing so much of your story and your journey with us today. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for you.
Thank you. This has been such a fun conversation. So thank you for having me.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Well, I'm sure our listeners enjoyed it as well. And if you guys did and you're still sticking with us, please go rate, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube, connect with us both on LinkedIn, and Bri's LinkedIn will be posted there. So go ahead and do that. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
Hi guys, I want to share a bit about an organization that I support called Wednesday Women. They're on a mission to increase the visibility of executive women leaders that you should know, learn from, and be inspired by. On LinkedIn, they share the profile of 2 amazing women each week, on Wednesdays of course. And now just imagine if we all followed, amplified, and nominated the women that we want to see more of. Their initiative provides examples of women CEOs, founders, sales executives, technical leaders, and so many more. By supporting Wednesday Women, you'll see more of these professionals in your social feeds, of course, but also on stages, podcasts, and panels. If you're interested in learning more and supporting their initiative, head over to www.wednesdaywomen.org or follow them on LinkedIn.